Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. You can hear, that's good. Fantastic. Got a couple more minutes till 10, so we're just gonna set up some stuff here. Good morning.
Good morning.
And
Julia also says good morning. All right. Well, 10 o'clock now. I'm gonna shut these, but
okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah.
Somebody else
yeah,
coming in?
Ryan's joining us. James.
Few more coming in. Okay, we're about ready to go.
Oh, Nancy's joining in.
Okay. In a few minutes.
Yeah.
More seconds and then we'll go. Good morning.
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 Okay, you're recording?
Yep.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody here and everybody there. Today we're gonna just talk about, you know what, working with buyers. I thought the easiest way to do it would be actually show you a buyer's guide that we created. And then we're going to share hosting, if you decide that you wanted to host a, first-time buyer seminar, we're giving you the layout of how to do that. As anybody, I know, before we get started, I think, Cotton, didn't you not do a first-time buyer seminar online?
Yes, Scott, I have done, I think a couple of them I've done. I did one last week. One I
Yeah.
did probably like few weeks ago. Yes, for sure.
Okay. Okay, so then let's, we're gonna go through what everyone's gonna get a copy of this presentation. So then you can edit it any way you decide you want to. And then obviously we're gonna give you just hosting a first-time home buyer seminar. And then we can go through, just have an open discussion on, how do you guys work with buyers? Who's had success doing any type of seminars? Has she set it up that she can share her screen?
I can set it up.
Thought she had it ready to go.
So
You
Scott,
want me to share it now?
I had
Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
I had some success. So I'll share along the way kind of thing, whatever my learning is. So, but you can kind of go ahead with your presentation, but idea is same way like Facebook ad and trying to attract first time home buyers, and then doing basically the webinar, doing the presentation, and then having them book one-on-one meetings right after the webinar, right?
Right on screen.
I have to print more. Give me one second.
Okay. In the chat, actually, I think Michelle may have put the presentation that I'm going to just go through with everybody.
Yeah.
So we can either share on the screen, or we can just, if you just want to open the chat and you can see the presentation there.
We're good.
Okay. All right. So we'll share the screen as well. That's what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. So this is all going to be sent to you. You can edit it, do whatever you want with it. The idea always I've found working with buyers is you have to have a pretty in-depth discussion with them, because lots of them have no idea what they're doing, right? And you don't want to be running around. You don't want to be wasting your time, because they're a lot of work, but they're future business. So I look at it as always being any of my first time buyers that eventually end up being sellers, right? Ended up being move up buyers, ended up being referrals. So always look at them. Yes, I know people say, I don't want to work with first time buyers. I can certainly tell you though, you want to have a long, prosperous business in real estate, you need to work with them. Because they really, they become, 3, 4, 5 transactions down the road. So the first part is basically we're gonna just go through the buyer's guide, the table of contents, really having a discussion with them. Is home ownership right for them? Are they actually financially ready to own a home? And then actually how to finance it. And then really finding out what I refer to as their wish list, and how realistic is it? And then, who else is involved? Okay. So just on to where it says work with the executive advantage. Put this together just to really talk about letting them know that, the whole idea behind, buying and what we can do as a professional to help them. So you want to be able to make sure you have your bio, make sure you have all of the information available on how you helped buyers. Okay. And always have a situation, if it's not you, then, find a situation from another agent who's actually, worked with first time buyers. And just so that you're familiar, because the easiest thing with first time buyers is for them to start getting into it, and then they panic because it's overwhelming, and then they pull back. So, I always look at, one step at a time with first time buyers. But the best part is really having everything sort of opened on the table, so they know the next steps. Here's what we're going to do. And then we move forward to the next, rather than being, okay, just running around and going like crazy with them. That's the way I do it. That's what I found to be the best for me. And so then I look at, step one, is home ownership right for them? You really have to have an open discussion with them and be straightforward with them. Go, you know what, at this time, maybe it's not right for them. Or if it is right, then you have to go through and I should go through these steps. They will get more comfortable with the process. Okay, so I always look at going through having a discussion with them. What is their current financial situation? Are they financially stable? Is there something else going on in their life or coming up in their life that they, weren't aware of, or in the sense of, oh no, we've got this other commitment. Well, that may be part of the down payment. So that's why it has to be a real open discussion. And I always would say to them, look, the reason I'm going to be asking you some personal questions is because for me to get you the best opportunity, I need to know your situation and make them comfortable with the fact that the only reason you're asking the questions is to give them the best advice. And sometimes the best advice is not to buy. Yet, it might be a year or two down the road, might be the best advice you can give them. So you got to go through. And then, we just look at, the idea of going through, and you'll see in the next few pages of, what are the responsibilities are there between, not just coming up with the down payment, it's what other costs are involved. So they have the whole picture, right? So that's why it's always step one is what we look at. Then we have a discussion, renting versus buying. What are the pros and cons? And so we would go through and I go through with them and basically look at, and again, looking at their situation. Okay. Is it the right time for them? Is it really the opportunity for them now, or is it down the road? But if it's down the road, how do you help them get there? Right. So that's sort of part of the discussion as well. And then we go into, are you financially ready to own a home? Because we look at what are you spending now? They may have a very lavish lifestyle. They may have, beautiful cars on lease. Well, if you're looking to buy, you may have to get rid of one of those leases, right? And, or, all the entertainment that they do. Well, if you're looking to buy, maybe you got to change the lifestyle. And that's why having that open discussion with them and really just going through and looking at their whole situation is really prepping them for what home ownership is. And if it's right for them. Okay. Any questions so far from anybody? No? Okay. And then continued on step 2 is, are you financially ready to own a home? And then we sort of go through just talking about, the guidelines of being able to qualify. Okay. And just looking at the GDS, the TDS. And that's where you're looking at going, okay, based on their current income, based on their expenses, and you should be able to do this. Okay. This is a step that you as a realtor should be doing. Really don't need the mortgage person to do this. You need to understand this. If you don't, reach out to me and we'll figure it out. Okay. So that whole idea is that is a simplified way of finding out if they're in a position to do anything.
Be the simplified one, but it's the hard nut to crack today.
Well, and that's the, and that's where you want to find out, right? Because looking at everything that they're doing, you have to, if they have a certain lifestyle and they want to keep that lifestyle, maybe ownership's not right for them. Right? So that's where you really have to have, an open dialogue with them. And just go through it with them and just go, okay, well, maybe it's not today, but all of a sudden, I had one buyer, she says, well, I love driving this car. That's great. But that car is $1,000 a month. Beautiful Mercedes, but $1,000 a month. If you didn't have the car, that's a lot of mortgage, right? Well, 2 years later, she got rid of the car and all of a sudden she was able to buy her first condo. But that's the kind of thing that you as the professional realtor need to sit down with and go through with them. Okay, because again, timing may not be right for them. But you want to go through and make sure that as you're dealing with these first-time buyers, is that you have the discussions. The worst time to have this discussion is after you've been running around showing them places, getting ready to do an offer, and all of a sudden it's, well, let's see now, what can you afford, and find out, oh, geez, I have this loan, I have this lease, I have this, a student loan, I have, so there's always prep and have the open dialogue. Okay. And if you don't understand the actual GDS, TDS, reach out to me, but it is something that everybody needs to know how to calculate as well. It's great you understand it, but can you calculate it if you're sitting across from somebody? Okay. are you financially ready to own a home? We go into, again, just as where I was just sort of looking at the additional costs. You know, yeah, you're gonna have to have the down payment, but there's also home inspection fee, possibly an appraisal fee, insurance costs, there's you know, all kinds of other lawyers' fees, moving costs. Make sure that you go through all the different costs with them, because come closing, all of a sudden it's like, well, no, I thought I only had to have this amount of money. I didn't realize I had to have, you know, an extra, could be an extra 10 grand. Could be more, it could be 20, depending on where they're buying, on the land transfer tax. Right? So really, really important to make sure that you go through that. Now, on that particular page, you'll also notice that we reference the home buyer's plan. Okay, so make sure that when you're, and we put, you will get links when Michelle sends this out. She's going to send the links to the different programs available to first-time buyers. Okay, so you get familiar with those, especially if you're doing the seminar. You need to know, need to know the programs. Any questions so far? Okay. All right, what do you do next? Now you've basically
Well,
gone through. Yeah.
Sorry, one question regarding that, because I did come across exactly that. Are you financially ready? And I made the mistake of believing them, and I should have maybe pushed a little bit more to get that information. On paper, they were making $8,000 a month take home. And I'm like, my goodness, okay, now you can easily afford a mortgage, or, you know, and then I showed them a bunch of places and everything was going great until I finally said, okay, this is the one? Great, send me your info. And then once they sent me the info, I'm like, oh, no, you know, and exactly what you were saying, they had both $1,000 car payments each, not even including insurance and then maintenance of those vehicles. And then they had credit card debt and all of that. And I'm like, at the end of the day, you only have $1,000 left, like not even. And so, yeah, but what do you do when somebody is reluctant to give you that information to assess that properly?
Well, then that's where you got to make a decision. Do you want to work with the people or not? Right? And the issue is why go out and spend all your time prepping, finding properties, going to show them properties, if they're not in a position, one, that you know they're in a position that if they find the right place, that they could go ahead to do it. Right? So, and that's where I basically say to them, look, I wouldn't be doing my job if I showed you a place and you get all excited about it, all emotionally involved with it, and then we find out, oh, you can't afford it. That's devastating. So let's not put you in that position. So by working together, you're sharing your information, and then we can at least know that when we come across the right house, that you can at least proceed with it. Yeah.
It might be a good idea to build a relationship with their mortgage specialist.
Well, yes, we're absolutely, and that's one of the steps, and that's right on here, basically meeting with the credit counselor or, you know, mortgage advisor. But sometimes though, when you need to be able to at least get that information from them to a point where you can either say, based on everything that you've told me, then yes, you should be in a position to go ahead with this kind of price range. But let's get you pre-approved so that we know that initial step and time, because nothing is happening overnight anymore. Pre-approvals, any kind of information from any of the lending institutions, it's days and weeks. It's just not happening overnight. So once you get to that point where you yourself feel that they're in a position and you can advise them and they're readily sharing the information, you're also building their trust, right? Because you're coming across as the professional. You're basically saying, you know what, let me get you to a point where you are going to be in a position to, if you decide that you really like a place, that you can move forward with it. So absolutely get them. But I know, so I have other realtors I've talked with. They won't talk to or even sit down with a first-time buyer until they have a pre-approval from somewhere. I personally, I personally want to build the rapport with the buyer. One, to see if I really want to work with them. My decision, not theirs. And two, to make sure that I can tell by the questions how they're answering them, if I'm getting the right information. And then it's just a matter of building that, building through questions and sharing, you build that two-way trust. Right? And I always say to them, look, you know what? Part of this whole initial meeting is really to see if we can even work together, if we decide we want to work together or not. Because you can scare away buyers when you start saying, basically, go get pre-approved. And the issue with that is, like, I haven't even built any rapport with them. That's the way I do it. I find over the years, my success working with buyers is when I actually get the opportunity to communicate with them, have question answer period with them, share stories about other first-time buyers I've dealt with. And that's where I build that rapport and trust. And if you do it a different way, that's okay. That's, you find the way that works best for you. I'm just going to share with what my success has been. Okay. So, and this is absolutely right, Bunny. Like, now we're on to the next step. Now that you've got general information from them, absolutely. The next thing would be, let's look at your budget. Let's look at your situation. The situation might be, maybe they have to pay off some loans before they can buy. Maybe they got to fix up their credit scores before they can actually qualify for something. So that's what this other discussion is about. And then from there, then you've got to familiarize yourself with what programs are out there. Okay. First Home Savings Account is now out there as well. There's programs where they can take money from their RSP. There's land transfer tax rebates. So make sure you familiarize yourself with the programs and be in a position to explain. You don't have to know every little detail, but at least know the basics of how do they apply, what do they need, what's the term, especially with taking money out of the RSP, how long does it have to be in there, how much can you take out? So you will get the links for those. Okay. Any questions or anything so far? Okay, next few pages is just the home buyer's plan, land transfer tax rebates. Canada Greener Homes Loan. This is once somebody is in a property, they may qualify to be able to have a loan where they can actually improve the property for certain items. Okay. So it does relate to a first-time home buyer, but it's after they're into a property, not a program to get them into it. Okay. And then this is, financing your home, getting into the, the idea of the pre-approval, nor your credit score. So you've already had some discussions with that, letting them understand that. And then talking about, we talked about finding the right home. What is their lifestyle? Is there some special features? Is there a special location they need, and why? Right. Biggest one I get with first-time buyers that I've dealt with is transportation. A lot of times, because of where work is, they need to be close to transportation. And even so, still today, lots of companies have gone to hybrid. So they may not be there every day, but 2 days a week. I'm seeing lots of that. Okay, so definitely need to have some discussions with them. And then just going in and just, you're looking at who the team is. And this is where you should have some bios with you, or at least talking about, who you are. Who do you use as appraisers, home inspectors, mortgage brokers, anything, lawyers. Okay. So you need to have your team already figured out. And then just really, you need to have your bio, make sure it's up to date, make sure your picture's up to date. Don't put your high school picture in there if you haven't been in high school for a few years. And just really talking about, who you are and stuff like that. And then just a matter of making sure that you let them know that you would like to work with them and why. is the biggest factor sometimes as you do all, you start working, you're talking with first time buyers. But you never ask them actually if they want to work together. You give them all the information and it's like, well, wait a minute, did you actually ask if they wanted to? So, that's where you want to make sure you're not wasting your time. Okay. Any questions just on, I'm sure, everybody may have their own version of a buyer's guide. We just want to put something together that you could customize yourself, add in, give you talking points, as well as giving you the links to the different programs. Okay. Any questions, thoughts? Gautam, you want to explain a little bit on sort of what your success has been with a couple of the seminars you've done?
Yes, Scott, I can share my information. So, I mean, the one I did last week, I mean, I had I think about 20, 25 people register, but I think about 12 showed up onto the webinar, I mean, through Zoom. So, and out of the 12, 2 have booked the meetings, right? So follow-up meeting with me one-on-one kind of thing, right? That's the idea. We basically go through like what exactly you explained, and then basically tell them to book one-on-one, because people are not comfortable opening up their personal situations along with group of people, right? So opportunity is, and even that gives me an opportunity to talk to them one-on-one as well, right? Offline or whatever. But like I said, I work with a mortgage advisor, and I tend to refer them there because I want to know what their pre-approval is going to look like, because like Herbert said, they tell me all these things are nice numbers, but they don't tell me everything, right? So I usually tend to refer them to a mortgage advisor with a bank or an independent mortgage advisor, depending on what they prefer. Or if they have a pre-approval with their own bank, which is fine as well. And I do ask that question, right? So before I get to the next step of sending them some properties to look at, and we kind of go over and visiting some homes, right? Because I don't want to be just wasting time. That's what my thought there is, right?
Good. Okay. So we did put together hosting a first time homebuyer seminar, just sort of just a step-by-step how, we would see if somebody was going to do it. And then maybe after, Gautam, you can sort of just give us the steps that you use. But really, when you start looking at if this is something you're going to do, and not everybody will do them, the prepping and planning, if you look at step 1, you really have to identify what is it that you are trying, why are you doing it? You as the realtor, why are you doing it? Okay. What is your goal to be able to do that? Okay. You got to decide on date, time, location. Some realtors like to do them in person, where they will actually, book a place to do them. Gautam, well, you can have 25 registrations, 12 show up, 2 appointments. That's the goal, right?
Pretty good, actually.
That's really good, right? So then you got to customize your presentation. So you want to look at putting just a template together and how you're going to present, and, really looking at, don't go any longer than about 30 minutes. Gautam, how long was yours?
I schedule like 1 hour Zoom, but my presentation is supposed to go about 40-45 minutes, but I make it interactive. I ask them like, put your questions in the chat, and every 10 minutes I'll go to the chat and answer those specific questions, because they do come up with a lot of questions, right? So which kind of helps everybody, right, in the group for me to answer those questions.
Super. Okay. So we basically look at your presentation, has to have some good content. So we're always saying, around 30 minutes, and then, but if you're doing interaction and answering questions along the way, then obviously that expands it.
Yeah,
Also,
that is for
right?
1 hour. Sorry, Scott.
Yeah,
Webinar
but-
scheduled for 1 hour, so people are.
Yeah, so you let the people know that it's going to be 1 hour, but there's going to be Q&A, there's going to be interaction, there's discussions about different programs. Good. Gautam, do you have your mortgage broker on that session with you?
No, I don't. I have not done that yet, Scott, but I think that's something I'm thinking on. But
Yeah.
the only thing I need to do is, if I bring a mortgage broker on, I don't want it to turn into like a pre-approval discussion 100%, right? I want to
Right.
to be
Yeah.
basically driven through mind and control as well. That's why I have not brought them yet into
Yeah.
the conversation.
Yeah, no, and so one of the things that we look at is build your team, make sure that you have third-party professionals, right? Especially sometimes if you're doing it in person, they get the opportunity of, just having a bit of time to talk about what they do. And then it's also, just looking at who else, right? Who else can be involved? You may have, you want to look at a database, maybe you want to look at communicating with all your database, let them know you're doing this. Don't just put it out as a post to sign up. Because one thing don't forget, your existing database may have referrals that are looking at that they haven't even communicated to you about. Right? So if you reach out, don't forget to reach out to your database to let them know what you're doing. Okay. And that's where, looking at making sure you get your database involved. Make sure you have some kind of registration, sign up form to Gotham. Are you doing it through Facebook or how are you doing it?
I mean, the ad, I do it on Facebook, but I have a landing page where I get them to land and register. And once
Okay.
they registered, they come into my CRM system, and that's where I kind of, communicate through my CRM system to them.
Yeah.
But I use like this landing page where they register, and then that's how kind of it works. I don't use the Facebook form for them to sign up. I kind of have this landing page separately.
Okay. Other groups to look at is if you're part of any kind of different communities, right?
Okay.
Or any kind of different hobby groups, make sure you post it there as well. Don't just rely on maybe one ad advertising, buyer seminar. Make sure you reach out, because understand that your sphere of influence, your other databases, your communities, they want to deal with people that are busy. Because if they see that and this is a way, without asking them if they want to buy or sell, that they see that you're involved in the real estate industry. Okay. Obviously hosting your event, if you're going to do it in person, just make sure that you test all the technology before, making sure everything's working right. If you're doing it online, again, just make sure you go on and make sure the connections and everything's working fine. One of the recommendations from somebody that does a fair bit of these, they have giveaways. Right? So depending on, first people to show up or, anything, but just the idea of having some kind of giveaways. Okay. And then after the seminar, you got to remember to follow up is the big thing. Okay. Also make sure that when you are actually finishing up, that you're asking them, letting them know that you are very interested, very qualified to represent them. And how could they, reach out to you individually? Okay. Because you can do all the presentations you want, but if there's no call to action for them to even have a further discussion, you just wasted your time. Okay, so that's sort of just the steps. And anybody else besides Gotham, has anybody else done a buyer seminar? Okay.
The only thing
How?
what I
Yep.
have, I mean, I would try to get to in person eventually, but I think Zoom's more convenient for people. I mean, and people success rate of Zoom is more, I think, versus the in person. Because again, like you said, right, there might be some incentive you have to give and all that, but online people are easy access. And I usually tend to do it like Tuesday evening, 7 o'clock, or like a Thursday evening, 7 o'clock, like just one of those 2 days I usually pick. So I don't pick like a weekend or whatever when people are busy. So usually like a weekday evening. And
Yeah.
that does, and exactly like you said, right? Reaching out to CRM, like sending them an email that I'm doing a webinar. I mean, if you know somebody, you can send them this link for them to register. or they can register if they have or they're looking for another places to buy or whatever, right? So I do that, and same way, like you said, Facebook groups, again, posted there everywhere. And the other thing is basically reminders to these people. And also when I do the webinar, I record it. I share the link with them after as well. Like you said, after follow-up is the key, right? So it's not only the two people booked a meeting with me, but I do share the recording with the other, who could not attend. Then again, follow up with them to eventually convert if we can, maybe not today, but maybe in few months, or depending on where they are in the process, right?
Right. Good. Have you done two of them?
I've done two of them, yes, so far.
Yeah. Okay. And how many appointments so far you've actually been on?
I've been on from the first one, I've had, again, like 2 appointments I had from the first one and 2 from the
Yeah.
second one.
Excellent.
Like the second one, I spoke to the lady there, but again, she's ready to buy. But again, I referred her to my mortgage broker to go through
Yep.
the approval process. And again, they share some information with me, but not everything. So that's why I referred her to my broker. So we know the exact number then before we start looking. The second appointment is actually today evening, right?
Good. Well done. That's very good success, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the first two that I converted from the first one, again, there's one which is kind of, a little bit far in the process. Like, I mean, he's not ready to buy yet. Probably May, June is when he's looking to buy. But again, we are kind of discussing what he's looking for and stuff. And also second one, basically, I've been, talking through as well, like, to convert them.
Yeah.
It takes time,
Any-
isn't it, then?
Well, and now that you've done it twice, is there anything you would change on how you're presenting?
First one I did was I shared like more of the mistakes that first time home buyers do. And I think the engagement was less, but this time I did my like buyer presentation, and I think the engagement was more in this one. That's what my OpEx is from there, like the experience that I can share, that I think take them through the presentation, giving them why pre-approval is important, and walking them through steps. And again, give them chance to ask all questions. So people ask, why is it right time for me to buy now? So I do share market stats, like how it's an opportunity time right now. So I kind of brought the stats from Trab and showed that and said, look how many listings we got. You know what I mean? And it's an opportunity time for buying, right? So sharing that also, if somebody's ready to buy today, then it's a great time for them to move ahead.
Good. Okay. Are you using the buyer presentation that's in Prime Agent that you customized?
I have created my own another version of it, kind of thing. So I use the same one, but I did customize and added my slides into it.
Right. Good. Okay. Are you boosting the ad at all, or is this just organic that the way you're doing it?
No, I am spending the Facebook ad, like, putting
Okay.
like a Facebook ad, right? Like paid ad.
Right.
So I run it, right?
Can you share your budget?
Yeah, so I do it about, if I'm running a webinar, I do $250 to $300 per webinar. That's my kind of the spend. And I don't run it for like a month or whatever. I run it for a week and then do the webinar. So that $300 spend is for that week.
Right. Okay. And you're finding that gives you enough because you're doing it's not a long period of time. It's not like they sign up now and then 3 weeks later you're doing the webinar. You're basically trying to get them to sign up knowing within days the webinar is going to be.
Correct. And the idea there is that if they register and they will show up, the conversion rate or success rate of them joining within a week is more versus you told somebody a month ago and they forgot about that webinar already, right? You know what I mean?
Yep. No, makes sense.
That's why that 7-day period is kind of the ideal period. I do my ad doesn't go beyond, maximum is 7 days. Typically I target between 5 to 7 days. That's how I kind of run it.
Okay, good. Sorry,
it-
question?
Is it a video message for the invitation to your webinar?
So when you do when you're doing your actual ad, is it a stagnant ad or are you doing an actual video?
I've not tried a video. I've just done the stagnant, like a, screenshot of a home with basically, and I can share it here also. It doesn't matter, with basically the webinar name, webinar date and time, basically on that picture.
Right. Okay. And then they just click here to register for the webinar.
Yeah, this is good. Yes, and then there's a website where they will go to landing page to register.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Okay. Questions? Anybody have any questions, comments? And Gautam, thanks so much for sharing. That was excellent information.
Site you have created?
It's just a standard landing page, right? In the website?
Correct. It's a standard landing page, basically, just talks about a little bit about me and just basically, click here and fill up the form, right? Name, phone number, email, and click register.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, most websites will have a landing page built into them. So you just have to find out where that where that page is and just make sure the URL lands on that page. And if anybody's having any difficulty with that, there's some of us here that could help. Maybe not me, but there's some other people here who could. So, anybody done any other style of hosting a webinar? Doesn't have to be first-time buyers, but any type of seminar, webinar.
One for seniors right now.
Working on one for seniors.
Yeah.
Okay,
But more of, with the seniors, it's more in person
okay.
than online, because I think they're better in person.
In person? Yeah. So how, let's, flip back to buyers. How do you target buyers? Where do you find them?
Renters.
I find first-time buyers through my contacts who have kids. That's really where my target is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why it's really important to make sure if you're doing this kind of webinar that you send it out to your database. Right? Because that's where the buyers, that's where a lot of the first-time buyers are. What about university students?
I was gonna say, I'm trying to.
Grads.
My son's friends, but, a lot of them are having troubles trying to make it happen.
Well, a lot of them won't be in a position yet, right? A lot of them won't be in a position yet. But what a great way of starting to help them plan.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe 5 years down the road. But, the idea is if you can, get them thinking about that. Right? And let them know, like, it doesn't have to be today. It could be 5 years down the road. But if they don't start planning now, 5, 7 years down the road, they still haven't started to plan for it. So absolutely, anybody that is in your sphere, their kids, and let your sphere know, like, hey, by the way, I may not be, kids may not be ready today, but 5 years from now, here are some programs they should look at signing up for, first time home buyers program and things like that, and let them know, yeah, you can use money in your RSP. So definitely look at that. What about existing rental buildings? Right? There are some very specific rental buildings that are out there. What about a paralegal that deals in landlord-tenant issues? How many times would they get a call from an existing tenant going, I'm looking at buying something, but can I get out of my lease? Make sure you align with lawyers or paralegals that would answer those kind of questions. On Facebook, are you on any of the rental platforms? Right? Just really think about where you could be to be marketing yourself about, working with first-time buyers. Because there's lots out there, and there's programs, there's opportunities, but you have to think ahead, right? these buyers may be maybe 5 years down the road. But if you can start having the conversations now with them, helping them understand on how they can get to that step. That's where you build up the trust.
And I did, Scott, one webinar I did for investors group too, right? So where my
Right.
presentation was geared toward 100% towards investors kind of thing, multifamily, like duplex, triplexes investment, right? So that was a good one too, where I got converted, like one client purchased my listing. So that was a success there that I
That
had.
paid for that webinar.
Definitely. For sure. So it was basically I blended the deal because of I got the client there, right? So
Well
Yes,
done.
So
yeah.
can I interject for a second, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I was just so for first-time home buyers as well, one of the avenues that I've received them from is my sister used to, her and her husband used to give a certain talk or something at those pre-marriage courses to the church.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she's met quite a few people through the church. This is through the Catholic Church, but I'm sure there's many other denominations that do the same type of thing. And I've actually received referrals from her for people that are just getting married, like new couples starting off, kind of thing, because that's kind of where they're at. If you want to zone in on them, right? They're all doing like a pre-marriage course, that kind of thing, because a lot of times it's a requirement depending on the religion. And
Right.
another avenue actually that I've got is through my sister again works at UFT, and there's a lot of new lab techs that work there, like a lot of the young people that just kind of starting off and getting into their careers in the university, and I've gotten some referrals through there as well. So that's another good avenue if you guys if you have a good rapport with past professors in different schools, where you can go and meet with them and just say, hey, you know what, I'm into real estate now. This is what I do. This is what I offer. Any referrals, you could keep me in mind and appreciate it. That type of thing, right? Where you can
Yeah.
actually offer them the referral program and introduce them to your referral program.
Good points. Good points. Actually, I knew an agent that, I don't know if he still does it, but he used to take a booth. There used to be a bridal show or down one of the conference centers, and he used to have a booth there. And he's like, the names that he would get, he said it was like 800 names.
Target audience.
Right? So look again at any type of those events, if that's what you're trying to get in front of them. Right? And the whole idea about doing any type of, going to any kind of event is just nothing about giving out information. Don't try to close, don't try and close them right there. Just make sure you have some way of getting contact information. Always, a giveaway is always good, because then you can let everybody know, by the way, this is the winner of whatever you gave away. And really be in a position that you've practiced on having people come up to a booth, if that's what you're going to do. And ideally, if you're not sure, reach out to Elroy, reach out to Nancy, because they run booths. They do, like they're going to be at the cottage show. Nancy's already done, she does her community, she has a booth at her community stuff. They're experienced at running that kind of booth. Okay. And I know they'd be willing to share any information, but look at those kind of events. And yet there's going to be a cost to them. Like, they're not, you gotta buy the space or rent the space, you got to do stuff. But find a way, and if you are going to work that kind of seminar or that kind of show, just make sure you planned it right. Make sure you got your signage, make sure you've got your giveaway, got your information, but that's another way of doing it. So in other words, in person, online, but you have to be prepared, you have to have the steps, and hopefully, between listening to how Gautam does his, some of the information we've provided you, it might be something that you may want to look at. You don't have to do it, I don't recommend you all do it, because some of you just won't want to do it. Right? But there's definitely good information, even just understanding the programs that are available for them. Okay, being able to put out to your database, by the way, just in case you didn't know, I'm very, my team and I are really good at working with first-time buyers, and here's some of the things that we cover. Right? Because that would be excellent to send out. Because all you're looking for is that communication, a reason to communicate, right? And just as Rob said, reach out to people that might, be in positions that they're dealing with that demographic of that age group, or people that are going to be in a position where they're going to be looking at life changes that will spur them on to buying something. Make sure you build that referral network. Any other thoughts? Anything anybody want to share? Information?
I got one more.
All right.
Wedding planners.
Yes.
That'd be a good one. That'd be a good one to partner up with. And you can even come up with a referral program where the person can get a certain discount if they use you through that wedding planner. For
Yeah.
the wedding planner
Yeah.
that you would subsidize, right?
Right.
Yeah. If you want.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, it's building building those relationships, right? With the purpose in mind of helping people. That's, that is one of the best ways of doing it is through that relationship, or through online providing information, right? It's all about providing the information, and just make sure you know the information. Practice it, practice it, practice. Okay. Great. Any other thoughts on this particular topic? Was this information beneficial? We will send it out to you. Because all of you are going to deal with a first-time buyer somewhere. So you've got to make sure that, as I say, I like first-time buyers because I know down the road there are multiple transactions. Okay, any other topics?
Is this guide
wanna cover all-
customizable? Sorry, Scott.
What's that?
Is this guide customizable? We can put our picture in and all that?
Yeah,
Okay. Good, thank you.
yeah, and add to it, and if anybody wants to, if there's more information you want to share out, send it to Michelle. We'll make sure the group gets it. And again, this is just sort of what we came up with, as just knowing from some of the different things we've done. I'm sure there's, several other points that others may have. By all means, if you want to share them, we can always add to this. And, but it's all edible, absolutely. Okay. Anything else? Anything going on? New listings, price reductions, activity wise?
The problem coming up in 2 weeks. Lolita,
Where's that?
Mississauga, Lolita, Contra.
Oh, a condo? Okay. And Mississauga coming up. I may have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo coming up in Erin Mills. And I've got if anybody has anybody for a 2-bedroom, about 1,200 square foot rental in a nice building at Islington and Dundas, $3,200 a month, but that includes everything. That's your heat, hydro, internet, Barclay Terrace, so nice building. 2-bedroom, 2-bath, older building, but really well taken care of. So great location there. My listing that I had on Hazelberry in Nobleton, they finally got the builder to commit to when their new house is going to be ready. So that's coming back on the market for $1.7 million in middle of April.
I also have one coming up in Toronto.
Toronto, okay.
A house that I sold there, went in and remodeled it into a triplex.
Oh, cool.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it's beautiful. I can't believe what he did. He dug out the basement, and yeah, the place is absolutely beautiful. So that's gonna be coming up sometime in April.
Beautiful.
Oh, that's a good story to tell people because this one was a listing you did. This was a buyer that saw the listing, but you kept in communication with this person.
You're right, Herbert, it is. I was doing my, I sent out CMA videos at the beginning of the year.
Okay.
And he was one of the people that I sent it to, and he like picked up the phone almost immediately, because he's like, are you telling me that that's where my value is now? I said, yeah, that's what I believe. And as he's like, I'm not quite finished, I gotta put the kitchen in, but once it's finished, yeah, see if we can sell it, so.
Okay, so you did your sent out to how many clients?
30.
30? Okay, and so explain it to us, what you did.
So, I put CMAs together. I created, a template or whatever.
Yeah.
It was about 10 slides. And then, Canva has a great feature where you can have yourself on a video in the corner. So I did that. I talked to everybody individually, just, hi, how you doing? This is what's happening and this is what's going on in the market right now. And then here's what's happening with your home right now in the market. So I went through the comparables, showed them sort of where they were and, what they paid for it, what it's valued at now, what their percentage increase and dollar increase were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did that as a video and then sent it to them? Okay,
Yeah, so I uploaded it into my YouTube and then sent them.
you sent them from your YouTube station.
Yeah.
Channel, you sent them the link to their specific video, just
Yes.
for them.
Yeah, it went out, yeah, so.
Did you use that new Habitat program to look at the year-over-year increases? How did you determine that?
Well, as far as like for their house or like
Yeah.
so what I did was the general, where the market was, because I did these in January. So it's like where it was year over year and where it was for the month of January. But I used the CMA on Realm,
Okay, so you just use the CMA right in Realm,
read in Realm, yeah.
Okay.
And it sort of.
and then added that to your video idea?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
and then-
have all my graphs, because I
Yeah.
love my graphs, because I
Yeah.
feel like graphs don't lie.
Yeah,
So, yep, I had the comparables of the properties and sort of and I kind of only went back like no more than a year, like some of it's only
Yeah.
6 months, and tried to do it. I kept it simple, if they want something more detailed, then I can, dig in deeper. But I mean, I was sending stuff to clients like from 7, 8 years ago.
Good.
That had purchased, that I hadn't heard anything from them and kept sending them things. I didn't hear things back.
Yeah.
Sent them this again. Got an email back saying, oh my gosh, this is great. This is very professional. When we're ready, we're coming to you. So, it was like, there's a lot of, time and effort that went into those.
Yeah.
But it was definitely worth it because I made reconnections with people and then, and possibly a sale.
so way better than just a stagnant,
Yes,
here's the general market stat.
Yeah.
Personalized,
yes.
here's where you were, here's where you are.
Yeah, this is where you purchased at.
Yeah.
This is where I feel your value in today's market is.
Yeah.
And I always emphasize today's market.
Yeah.
Because,
Changes.
it changes. And that's your increase.
It's just for the one, like one person, like one property, you mean?
Each
like,
time.
Each time?
Yeah, so
Different videos to different people, right?
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because you have to, because each thing is personalized to them. So I did like 30 different presentations.
Yeah.
So, but I had a template so that it was easy enough to go, okay, so there's the property, drag that over, the picture drops in, and then I just have to change out the information. But yeah, it is, it takes time.
And you have their history, right?
Absolutely, because they're my past
They're your
clients, so I
past
just, go to, their files and go, okay, yeah, you purchased this in, to 2018, and this is what you paid. And now today's market, this is where you are. So, I mean, I did them in January because it's like, okay, you know what, first it's a little quiet, and it's like, okay, get the year started.
Yeah.
But if anybody's thinking about doing it, I would say it doesn't matter what time of year, just
Great
Just-
idea.
just send them out.
Right, brilliant idea.
Yeah,
And it's personalized.
And it's personalized too. And they get to see me. It's not like,
Yeah.
it's just, a 10-year-old photo in the corner.
Right, yeah.
So it is me and, can't be doing everything up every day, but, you start, just chat it and I'm talking like I'm talking now. So there are some ums and and you know what? Oh, wait a second. But yeah, it's personalized and it was
Yeah.
me being authentic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good, well done.
Yeah.
But how many agents don't do that? like they sell a house or buy or sell it, whatever the case may be, and then 2 years pass by and they don't even communicate with that person. And they're already listing with somebody else already, you know?
And there's some that I thought, oh, I'm sure they must have slowly keep checking on Geo Warehouse. And it's like, no, they're still there. And I know they got 2 kids and they're in like a little stacked townhome. Anyways, but they're the ones who said, oh my gosh, it's so great to hear from you. This is great info. And yeah, so,
Great.
it is. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
Good, excellent. Any other questions, thoughts?
Session was very helpful.
Good. Is it next Wednesday? We have Fin Tracker? Okay, so Fin Tracker, is anybody familiar with it?
Yeah.
That's the, yeah, okay. So Fin Tracker is an app that the boards now are really highly recommending that we use. Because FinTrack themselves are really starting to do their audits and looking for violations and looking for making sure that you're identifying the consumer. FinTracker itself does a lot of that work behind the scenes. Okay, so next Wednesday, we're gonna put it out, but book it because we are going to, as a company, we are going to transition over to where FinTracker is going to be mandatory. Okay, whereas now it's also going to be way more easier for you to do it because once we implement FinTracker, then our liability, risk liability, is actually limited because of the fact that we're using a third-party provider to verify everything. And when I say verify everything, behind the scenes, so you basically can take the ID, you just scan it. Behind the scenes, it fills in all the documentation. Behind the scenes, it's already doing an international search.
Oh, wow.
It is looking for, and will give you a report saying caution, this is, and then to look in further. But it is something to the point where First Canadian Title, that actually does all the title insurance, just bought the company because they want to make sure that they're using them for everything. So through the different boards, it is something that they highly recommend. We had a personal session on it, and it's something that we're going to implement for the company. One, it makes it easier for you to do your actual FinTrack requirements, but for just protecting your backsides, it's really good.
Yeah, the system is super user friendly. Our admin team's been trained on it thoroughly and will continue to be. And the awesome thing is FinTracker also monitors the ID for a year after you've done all the forms, which is in compliance with FinTrack, which is what you're supposed to be doing. So again, it's covering your liability.
Does it cover the politically?
Yes.
So you don't
Yeah.
have to fill out either, like you just scan it, does all of it?
It will.
So the person that you're IDing will have a very user-friendly form on the app or on the website. It's the same questions, but they just have to, like, after you scan the ID, everything that's on the ID will automatically populate. So their name, their address, everything like that. And then they just answer the questions that are on the politically exposed form, but it's more like multiple choice.
So do we scan the ID or they scan?
You can do it either way.
Yeah.
There is a remote verification. I think you get, each realtor gets like 5 free ones. And then it's a incredibly low cost if you want to do that more than 5 times. And so that's for the remote ID. So then that person would scan the ID and they have to do a facial recognition as well. But if you are with them, you scan the ID in your app as an agent.
Yeah.
And the app is free with your board. So, yeah.
Anyway, so that's next Wednesday. We are going to put that out there because crazy enough, but because of AI, mortgage frauds increased to the point where AI is now they can take somebody's information. The AI finds the actual face, creates it so that if you're trying to do a online face recognition interview, the person you're actually looking at is not the actual person, yet it looks like and matches the ID of the person. It's
Scary stuff.
right.
Maybe they should
So-
be doing it online. 100%.
Well, it's also just the fact that that's where even the lawyers, right? Lawyers are also like they're doing signing online. So it's you have to look at and go, that's why the Fin Tracker part, as a corporation, as an individual realtor, you really want that's why we're going to implement this, because it really is going to help with the liability risk, as well as making sure you know the buyer you're dealing with. Or the seller.
Tommy, do you have a question?
Yes, do you have time for a quick question?
Yeah.
Okay, I sent Michelle an email about realtors. What they do is that when they put out a listing, right? And you know where it says the commission, right? Commission paid to the co-op agent. It will
Yeah.
say the standard commission minus $50, minus $250.
Sure. Yeah.
marketing
Accounting fee
fee.
or the marketing fee or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that allowed?
Anything first, there's no standard commission. So just keep that in mind. Anything that is offered through the MLS system, if whatever the fee is, whatever deductions there are, as long as it's posted in that particular location on the MLS form, there's nothing wrong with that. They can absolutely do that. And that's been going on for years. That's nothing new.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Well, remember, I brought up that question. What do you do in that situation where you do see, $500 for marketing?
Yeah.
What was it that you said regarding that? I think you,
Well, if there is something that's on the listing that when it comes to any type of commission being payable, before you have to, if it's, if it's somebody else's listing and you're representing the buyer, you have to let the buyer know what's your buyer's representation agreement show. If your buyer's representation agreement shows they owe you 2.5%, then it doesn't matter what's on there. You have to let the buyers know, hey, on this particular one, there's they've lowered the fee that I'm working for. So you'll either, if I can't get it through them, then, we'll have to enforce it through the buyer's representation agreement. Or before you show the property, request to see through the agent if they would adjust that in the event that you brought a successful offer. But you have to do it before you show it. Because once you've shown it, then you've already agreed to the terms of that MLS.
Call people on that, or call your buyers on that, whether it's 2%.
I let the buyers I let the buyers know, here's what's going on. Do I ever try and go back and collect it? I've never done that. But I've certainly let them know that there was an adjustment that was made on my behalf.
Yeah.
To help them get into the house they want.
Yeah.
And I don't let them forget it. So. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions, thoughts? I thought it was good information today on this. Next Wednesday, it's going to be it's hosted by Fin Tracker.
Yeah, it's a webinar.
It's a webinar hosted by Fin Tracker themselves. It's please, because we are going to make Fin Tracker mandatory over the next 60 days.
It will be recorded though, right?
Yes.
Okay, good.
And there is lots of online training for agents at any time. This is just a live for Realty Executives Plus brokerage training. So you're able to ask your questions. They're able to talk about us individually and stuff like that.
Oh, and by the way, April 3rd, we have our awards luncheon. We have 60 people because we've opened it up to, there's 2 other Realty Executives companies that are gonna be joining us, one from Vaughan area and then Kitchener, Cambridge, Guelph are also gonna be, so right now so make sure if you have an RSVP to Michelle, please do, because one, we have to know how many people we have, but right now it's about 60. But there's also a great opportunity to network with other realtors where you can build your referral network for different areas.
Because about 50% of that RSVP is people either you haven't seen since the Rex reboot at One King West, or people you've never met that are agents and possible referrals for you. So, Gautam, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just to share, right? I mean, something about, I mean, on the prop tax website about that Habistat, I think Herbert shared the thing as well. I think they launched that new, I guess, the metrics, which Trub was not very great on. I think it so had a better graphs before, which I used, but now, going back to Trub 100%. And I was looking for some training, but they don't have anything online. They're offering some in-person webinars, I guess, which I've kind of scheduled myself in for tomorrow for some training just to learn how to kind of, look at all the graphics and things like that and play around within that Habistat program, right? So, but just something to share, Trub is offering. So if somebody's interested, right, I thought I'll share that.
Yeah, also keep in mind though, you still also have, that is great, but don't forget to use the
Market watch,
the home price index,
home price index.
because I had somebody that bought a house in 2021, and basically I looked at the comparables, the market research, did that, but as a secondary third party endorsement backup, you could go into the home price index and put in, like, this was a 3-bedroom semi in Lisgar area, Mississauga. Like, in there, I could put exactly all the information, put the year that it was purchased, the price that they paid for it, and it gave me today's value based on all the information behind it.
Sounds better than the
Right?
ground CMA.
So it was really, and then it reinforced what I had put together as well, right? So don't forget about that program. And absolutely graphs, I've always been a big, you guys have always seen, I love to use graphs because it's a third party telling the story, not me. So thank you for bringing that up. And they do have the different, for Habistat, they do have the different webinars you can sign up for. Okay. Well, great. Well, there's nothing else. Thank you, everybody, for your input and your sharing and coming out and taking part. And we'll see you next Wednesday, if not before. Great.
Have a good day, folks.
Yeah, take care.